Today, I am going to explain the film called Sydney White. Please support me and subscribe to this channel. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. Sydney White. The first scene introduces Sydney, a cheerful young girl who has been raised by her father Paul after her mother died when she was just 9. Being a plumber, Paul awkwardly teaches Sydney about the menstrual cycle using pipes and other plumbing tools. He does everything he can to raise her well, but sometimes a girl just meets her mother. Sydney has also grown up with her father's co-workers and is very close to them. One day Sydney receives a scholarship letter to attend SU and join her mother's sorority Kappa Phi Nu. As a result, everyone including Paul gets emotional by her departure. On her way, she opens a box given to her by her mother which contains a letter for her. In the letter, her mother shares her college experiences and advises her to enjoy every moment. She also states that the friends she will make in college will be her lifelong friends. When she arrives at college, she meets her roommate Demetria Rosemead, aka Dinky, who is also an incoming member of the Kappa sorority, and the two quickly become friends. Following this, we are introduced to the student council's tyrannical president, Rachel Witchburn. Rachel frequently visits her university's website, which ranks the hottest students in the school, and finds herself at the top of the list. She also has a crush on Tyler, who is the president of a popular fraternity. Tyler and Rachel's fathers appear to have provided 80% of the funding for the college, so the college administration gives them a little more priority. We also learn that Tyler and Rachel are working jointly on a project called the Witchburn Prince Greek Life Center. It's a new fraternity building designed only for the rich. However, for this they are planning to demolish an existing building called the Vortex, which is occupied by the so-called dorks. In the next scene, Sydney and Dinky leave for the rush party while Tyler and his boys look over the new students. One of the boys tries bullying a freshman by throwing a ball at him, but Sydney catches it. Witnessing this, an impressed Tyler approaches her and introduces himself. He also shows Sydney and Dinky around the school grounds and mentions the different sororities. At first he talks about Gamma Phi, the cheerleaders, and then Pi Beta Omega, who can now party any fraternity on campus. Following this, he leads him to their destination, Kappa Phi Nu. Meanwhile, Rachel, who also happens to be the leader of the Kappa sorority, observes Tyler and Sydney together and develops an immediate dislike for Sydney. After the freshmen are welcomed inside the sorority, two girls, Katie and Christy, approach Sydney and introduce her to Rachel. When Rachel meets Sydney, she believes the latter is not Kappa material and is also unconcerned about being a legacy. A few moments later, Sydney's tomboyish behavior is noticed by Katie and Christy, who also don't want her to be a Kappa. As a result, Sydney is on her own to survive the pledging. At the rush party, Sydney learns that Tyler will soon be a top litigator and Rachel will be a senator. However, she doesn't care much about it. At midnight, Rachel and her group rush into the room and wake up all the freshmen. She then gives them their first pledge task of finding a date and meeting her at the State Street Diner in 15 minutes. Rachel also forbids them from changing their clothes, wearing makeup, brushing their teeth, or combing their hair. As a result, all the girls rush to find a guy, but Sydney appears to be perplexed. However, after a bit of searching, she comes across a nerdy guy named Lenny. Wasting no time, she asks him out on a date, and before Lenny can reply, she leads him to Rachel right before the specified time. Following this, Rachel forces Sydney to ditch Lenny as another pledge task. At first, Sydney refuses, claiming that Lenny is a good person, but when Rachel makes her choose between Lenny and the Kappa sorority, Sydney obliges. She then leads him to the bathroom, and when Lenny returns, he finds everyone gone. To make matters worse, he is even made to pay the entire bill for the dinner. Eventually, Sydney's tomboyish upbringing proves to be an asset as she stands out amongst the other girls and overcomes the difficult initiation task. She also unintentionally inspires the other girls to defy Rachel's shallow teachings. This enrages Rachel, but she cannot do anything about it. In the meantime, she starts getting close to Tyler, who thinks she's cool and cute. One day she comes across Lenny and apologizes for what she did because of the pledge task, but Lenny walks away. In the next scene, Rachel announces that the pledging has finally come to an end and that the girls are now ready to be introduced as official Kappa sisters. For this, a traditional program will be held the next day soon. Rachel chooses a lucky winner to receive a special outfit for the upcoming program, but becomes disappointed to find Sydney's name on it. Following this, Sydney learns about the university's hottest website and finds out that she is ranked 213th. Rachel is envious to see her name on the list, so she provides her with the black dress to make her look bad intentionally. The next day, as soon as Sydney enters the program, she is approached by Tyler, who compliments her appearance and invites her to dance. Meanwhile, Rachel declares the girls as Kappa sisters and hands out their badges. Unfortunately, when it's Sydney's turn, Rachel makes up some stupid reasons and disqualifies Sydney from being a Kappa sister. She also reveals to everyone that Sydney's dad is a plumber. To add insult to injury, she even demands her black dress, and in a fit of rage, Sydney throws the dress and rushes out of the place humiliated. In the next scene, as Sydney sits alone in the heavy rain, Lenny and his friends approach her and offer her their place to stay there. Lenny introduces her to his other friends, Terrence, who is a genius, Spanky, who is very shy and nervous, George, who behaves like a kid, and Billy, who mostly suffers from jet lag, Jeremy, who is very much into girls, and George. The whole college categorizes them as dork, but nonetheless they warmly welcome Sydney to their vortex. Surprisingly, she begins living in the dilapidated house and also becomes close with the 7 guys. One day she mentions that the vortex needs extensive repairs, but the guys try to ignore it as they are afraid of Rachel. Meanwhile, Rachel is irritated to see Sydney's name listed second on the university's hottest website. The next day, Sydney obtains a sign-up form for each of her 7 roommates and encourages them to fill it out so they can participate in the election. The dorks have their reservations, but Sydney gives them an inspiring speech and brings them on board. Following this, the dorks begin to print pamphlets and prepare for the election. They set up their stall, informing everyone about their election campaign, which will be led by Terrence, while the group wants to repair the vortex and make amendments to other sororities. Their main objective is to remove Rachel from the student council. Soon Dinky pays a visit to their stall, apologizes to Sydney, and flirts with Lenny. Just then, Rachel stops by their stall and declares that they will never win the election, but Sydney is unconcerned about what she says. In the next scene, while Sydney is at the library, Tyler brings flowers to her desk and invites her out on a date. Sydney initially refuses, but as Tyler continues to sing in the library, she agrees to go out with him. Later, Tyler picks her up and drives her to a location where he serves food for the homeless. Tyler's humble demeanor impresses Sydney. Following this, he takes her to a beautiful location where they can enjoy their meal looking at the sunset. When she returns from her date, her roommates spy on her, so she punishes them by saying that she won't be telling them about her date elsewhere. Rachel is in Tyler's room to talk to him. Rachel warns him that Sydney is attempting to defeat them in the election, but Tyler pays no heed to her words and asks her to leave. Meanwhile, Sydney, along with her roommates, are watching TV when they hear their group's announcement for the upcoming election. As a competitor with the name Freedom to the 7th Power, Sydney and her group believe in accepting diversity and equality, in contrast to Rachel's views, which promote elitism and exclusivism based solely on popularity and appearances. As a result of this, Sydney gains respect from various cliques, and she is ranked first on the university's hottest website. When Rachel sees this, she becomes even more enraged and believes Sydney should die socially elsewhere. Tyler stops by the vortex and invites everyone to the upcoming party. At first, the dorks are perplexed because they have never been invited to a party before, but after a bit of convincing, they agree. At the party, everyone has a good time until Rachel exacts her revenge by stripping the guys naked. She then informs Sydney that Terrence is ineligible to run for president because he graduated 6 years ago and is only here to learn more. She also reveals her and Tyler's joint project to tear down the vortex. Hearing this, Sydney gets disappointed and she walks away without giving Tyler a chance to explain. To make matters worse, the group learns that the vortex has been set off limits by the City Board of Health. This makes them upset with Sydney, and they claim that their lives were better before she joined them as the only friend she had, are now angry at her. The next day, the dorks pack their belongings and leave the place. Meanwhile, Paul comes to meet his daughter, and when he hears her story, he immediately comforts her. He also expresses his pride towards her and makes her realize that her mother was more than just a Kappa. The next day, reinvigorated, Sydney approaches her friends and encourages them to fight for the election. Although the guys are hesitant, Sydney eventually persuades them, mentioning that they have to end Rachel's tyrannical rule. With this, the boys get motivated, and Sydney decides to be the new president. Following this, they begin working on the project and Sydney's promise and debate are widely publicized, lowering Rachel's confidence. However, the day before the election and debate, Rachel hires a hacker to delete all of Sydney's data from her laptop. As a result, Sydney freaks out for a moment, but soon gathers her courage and decides to spend the entire night in the library redoing her work. In the morning, she finally finishes the work, but due to extreme fatigue, she falls asleep in the library. Soon, the presidential debate begins. But her friends are unable to locate her. After a while, Tyler finds her in the library and wakes her up with a kiss. Fortunately, Sydney arrives on stage just in time, and she is surprised to see a large crowd cheering her on. She excels in the debate, which inspires everyone. The audience members stand up one by one, share their feelings, and show their pride to be adored. Not only her friends, but also Kappa's sisters back her up in the debate and vote to expel Rachel from the student council. Despite Rachel's promise to provide everyone with luxury clothing, no one listens to her. Finally, after Sydney's victory, the group begins renovations on their house, and everyone is happy to adapt to the changes in their college. Sydney's father and co-workers are also present to assist them in the renovations. Lenny and Dinky begin dating, as do Sydney and Tyler, and George is proposed to by a beautiful cheerleader. Meanwhile, Terrence arrives in a new fancy car and surprises everyone by revealing that he sold his innovative idea for $10 million. As her mother stated in the letter, Sydney now has friends with whom she lives dorkily ever after. This movie ends here. Thanks for watching.